Iteratively in the sense I will be executing some set of statements repeatedly. Flowchart is exactly something like a graphical representation. Compound header always ends with a colon. Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to the first session on the chapter Conditional and Iterative Statements. What is that I will learn in this chapter, sir? You will be learning different types of statements that we use in Python along with the different looping statements. So guys, without wasting much of your time, let me get into this chapter. This is going to be a session 1 on this chapter. So what is that I will be discussing in this session? Let's have a quick look. So I'll be discussing different types of statements that we have. So that is the first concept that I'm going to discuss. And also I will be discussing statement flow control. How exactly the statements is being executed is what we are trying to understand in the statement flow control. So what is the third one that we have? So the third one is program logic development tools. Suppose if I want to develop any program, so what is the supporting aids, what are the supporting tools that I have if I want to develop a program is what I will be understanding in this concept in brief. The next one that I will be discussing is, it's a very important concept if you want to become a programmer. So guys, I will be discussing what is if statements in Python. So different types of if statements in Python is what I will be discussing in this topic. Along with that, I will end the session with the storing conditions. So this is one of the advantages that we have. So that is what I will be discussing, that storing conditions, one of the interesting topic that we have in this session. So let's start with the first concept. I have the statements in my first concept, right? So what is statements in Python? Let us understand that in detail. Please listen to me. Have a book next to you. Please make a note of the points that I'm going to discuss now. So what are statements? A statement in Python is a logical instruction. A statement in Python is a logical instruction, so which the Python interpreter, please understand, Python interpreter can read and execute. It's very simple. I have the instructions. I have written a lot of instructions. Each line will be treated as instructions. So that instructions can be interpreted by the Python interpreter. So it can read and execute. It can read and execute. In short, in simple, I have the instructions in my program. It can be read and executed by Python interpreter. That is the first point that you should understand with respect to the statements. What is the second point that you should understand with respect to the statements? Please understand, statement can be executed sequentially. Statement can be executed sequentially. What is the meaning of sequentially? The statements, whatever the instructions that I have, I will be executing one by one. One by one, if I execute, that is what I will call it as a sequentially. So what is the next one I have? I have selectively. So I can execute the statements selectively. I will not be executing all the statements, but I will be executing some part of the statements. I mean, like, suppose if I have 100 statements, I will not be executing all 100 statements. Only few of the instructions will be executed selectively. So that instructions I will call it as selective statements. The next one that I have is iteratively. I will be executing the statements iteratively. What is the meaning of it? Iteratively in the sense I will be executing some set of statements repeatedly. I'll be executing some set of statements repeatedly. So such statements I'll be calling it as a iteratively. So guys, please remember, I will be executing the statements in 3 different forms. One is sequentially, one by one. Another one is, come on everybody, what is the second one that we have? I will be executing the statements selectively, and I'll be executing the statements iteratively. So this is the second point that you should remember. The first one is, it is a logical instruction. The Python interpreter can read and execute. The second one, you need to understand, we will be executing the statements in 3 different forms. What is the third point that I should understand? So Please understand. A conditional is a statement. A conditional is a statement set. Please understand. A conditional is a statement set which is executed on the basis of a result of a condition. We have a statement called conditional statement. So what is this conditional statement? So conditional statement, in the sense, it is a set of instructions. I can call it as a set of instructions. So it will be executed on the basis of the condition, whether it is satisfied or not. If the condition is satisfied, that set of instructions will be executed. Otherwise, it will not execute that particular set of instructions. So that we call it as a conditional statements. That we call it as a conditional statements. So you got a brief idea about the statements now. If I say the word statement, you should imagine the line of code. You should imagine the line of code. So that is what I would like to tell all of you. So I will just summarize this slide quickly. So statement, in the sense, it's a logical instructions which the Python instruction, the Python interpreter can read and execute. So you will be executing sequentially, iteratively, and also you'll be executing. Come on, tell me, what are the next one that we have? Sequentially, iteratively, and one more, selectively. And the last point that you should remember is, come on, what is that? Conditional. So this is what you have to understand in this slide. So moving on to the next one that we have. So guys, we have three different types of statements. When it comes to the statement, we are classifying the statements into three different forms. So let us understand what is the exact type of statements that we have. So the first one that we have is empty statement. The first one that we have is empty statement. What exactly empty statements in the sense? So this empty statement contains nothing, but whenever the interpreter encounters this empty statement, it will just pass the control to the next instruction. It will pass the control to the next instruction. That is the role of empty statement. That is the role of empty statement. Please understand, empty statement contains nothing. It is just passing the instruction to the next instruction whenever it encounters the empty statement. So the next type of statement that I have is simple statement. If I am able to execute that instruction or the statement that I have in one single line, so that is what I will call it as a simple statement. If I have my instruction or my statement in one single line, so that is the independent line, that is the independent instruction in one single line. Such instruction or the such statements, I will be calling it as a simple statement. For example, I have print, right? Print, if I give A, so this is in one line, right? So this is what I will call it as a simple statement. This is what I will call it as a simple statement. The next one that I have is compound statement. The next one that I have is compound statement. What exactly the compound statement is all about? Guys, compound statement is a set of statements. So please understand, this statement has got a predefined syntax. Let us understand that in detail, right? For example, you will have a compound header. You'll have a compound header. So guys, this header statement, you have to end with colon. You have to end with colon. So you will have the compound header. So you will have the colon at the end of this statement, right? So for the header, you will end with the colon. Then after that, the next statement, whatever you have, so you will have a set of statements inside for this compound statement. So that statement, you will indent it. So you will indent it. You will start all the statements, whatever it is coming inside this block. So all the statements should be indented. All the statements should be indented. That is what you have to understand. Such statements, we call it as a compound statements. Such statements, we call it as a compound statements. That's what you have to understand. I'll be discussing this in detail with an example of program in the coming sessions. So please make a note of this statement. Always compound header statement will end with a colon. Suppose if I end with the colon. So please understand the next line, whatever the statements that I have or whatever the statements will come in this block should be indented. Suppose if I write one statement from here, not from here, what is the meaning of it? This statement does not belong to this block is what you have to understand. So this is all about the different types of statements that we have. So moving on to the next concept. So next concept is statement flow control. I think I have discussed this already in the beginning slide. So how exactly the flow control is happening between the statements is what we are trying to understand with this concept. So as I told you in the beginning, sequence. What is the first one that we have? Sequence. Sequentially, if you are trying to execute the statements one by one, so we call it as sequentially you are executing the statement. The next one that we have is selection. This is very, very important. So I have 100 lines of code. Based on the condition that I have given, some selected statements will be executed. So such statements, I'll be calling it as a selective statements. So this is the second type that you have to understand. The next one that I have is iteration. So iteration, in the sense, you will be executing some set of statements again and again until you satisfy the condition. That's the third type that we have. So moving on to the next one that we have, program logic development tool. What is the next one that we have? Program logic development tool. If I want to develop the logic for the program, I will be using some certain tools and aids. So let me start discussing that one by one. So what is the first one that we have? So always we start with the algorithm. What exactly the algorithm is all about? Algorithm gives me a step-by-step solution. I can call it as a procedure. Algorithm gives me a solution to a given problem step by step in finite number of steps. It's not infinite. I am just pronouncing it as infinite, incountable number of steps. You can predict how many number of steps that you need to solve a given problem, but it will be done in step-by-step manner. So that's all about the algorithm. Suppose if I want to have the algorithm, how can I represent this algorithm? So I will be using pseudocode. What exactly pseudocode is all about, sir? Whatever the programs that you see, it's a complete program, but you will be using English kind of language in your steps. It is not completely programmed, or you will not be using the complete program there. So you will also use the general kind of statements. So that is what I will call it as a pseudocode, right? So along with the pseudocode, I will also use the flowchart. How exactly the instructions are being executed. So what is the flow of instructions? What is the first instruction that you will be executing? So after that, so what is that you are going to do? So all those things I will be representing with the help of flowchart. And also I will be using decision tree and tables. So all these tools I will be using to represent the algorithm. That's what you have to remember. So fine. Let us discuss some of the few concepts with respect to the flowchart. So I have all these things, but I'll not be discussing about all these things right now. I'll be discussing about the flowchart, a little concept about the flowchart right now. So guys, flowchart is exactly something like a graphical representation. With the help of some of the graphical representation, I will be representing the flow of execution of the program. So why do I use this flowchart? So the flowchart shows the different subtasks within the different symbols. I'll be using some of the different symbols. Each symbols are depicting some task. So let us have a look at that. So guys, whenever I'm using this kind of symbol in my flowchart, you have to understand that as a process. Some action is being executed. If I'm performing some action, I will be representing this symbol. I'll be representing this symbol. That action will be represented in this symbol. Whenever I'm starting a process, whenever I'm stopping a process, I'll be using this symbol. I'll be using this symbol. And if I want to make a decision, right? So if age is greater than 10, so what should happen? So if age is not greater than 10, what should happen? So such kind of things I will call it as a decisions. So I will be using this symbol for such situations. This is symbols that you have to remember. So this is for the process. Some action is being executed. So this is to start and stop, and this is for the decision making. So this is the tools that you have to remember, so to depict the flow chart. Then moving on to the next one, the very important topic that I have now, that is the if statements in Python. So what is that you have? If statements in Python. So guys, please understand, so we have something called if statements. What is the syntax of this statements and why do we need this? Let us understand that clearly. Please take a notebook next to you, mark the points. Suppose if you are very new to this topic, this is going to be very, very important. Suppose if you want to continue in the programming field, right? Let's start that. Guys, if is a keyword that I have to use. If is a keyword that I have to use. Then followed by if, whatever the condition that I have to test, I have to give it here. Imagine I have age is a variable, I'll just give it as 10. I'm storing, right? So age is equal to 10. So age is a variable. I just wanted to check whether age is greater than 10 or not. Let's imagine I'll be writing like this. I have to give a space after if condition, that is if keyword. I'll be writing age greater than 10. I have told you already, so this will come under the category of compound statement. So if it is a compound statement, this line you will be calling it as compound header. So compound header always ends with a colon. Please understand this. Suppose if I have colon here, the next statements, whatever I am going to have in this if block, so it should get indented. So I have to give one tab space. So then I have to write. So what is that? Print. Should I use parenthesis? Yes. Print age is greater than 10. Let me just write like this, right? So guys, you need to understand the purpose of the statement. What exactly is happening here? Imagine I have some set of statements here. I have some set of statements. In this example, I have just taken one statement. Imagine I have 100 statements. I want to execute this 100 statements only if I satisfy this condition. If this condition is true, only then I will be executing all the statements whatever I have listed under this if statement. Otherwise, I will not be executing this statement. I will just skip this statements whatever I have inside, and I will start executing other next instructions whatever I have after this block. Suppose, imagine I have something like this. So all the statements, let's write like something like this. All the statements will comes under this block, right? Suppose if I start the next statement from here, so this statement does not belongs to this block. This statement, whatever I have here, okay, this statement does not belongs to this block is what you have to understand. Suppose this condition is not satisfied, so what will happen? So this much of statements, whatever I have inside this block, including this, whatever I have, these statements will be skipped. So directly the control will come to this statement, the execution will start from these statements onwards. So that's what you have to understand. So this is the first if statement. This we call it as a simple if statement. What is the name of the statement? Simple if statement. Suppose if the condition is true, these statements will be executed. Suppose if the condition is not true, so it will skip the statement, it will start executing the other statements which is not in the block, is what you have to understand. In total, we have 4 different types of if statement. I have discussed the first category of if statement. Let me start discussing the second one. What is the second one that I have? If else conditional statement. What is that I have? If else conditional statement. So let us recollect what I have discussed in the previous slide, right? So guys, here I have just told you, so if this condition is true, you have to execute this. But I have not mentioned if this condition is false, what exactly it should do. What exactly it should do, I have not mentioned. Suppose if I want to mention, if the condition is not true, what it has to do, so I have to use the next type of statement, that is if else. What exactly the syntax is all about? So first I will write if age is greater than 10 colon, then I will write the statements. Okay, so if this condition is true, so this statement will be executed. Suppose I will just write else. Okay, again this is also a compound statement. So if the condition is false, it should execute what I will write in the else block. What I will write in the else block. This I will call it as a false block. This I will call it as a false block. This I will call it as a true block. So this set of statements will be executed only if the condition is true. This set of statements will be executed only when the condition is false. That's what you have to understand. But only one of the block will be executed. So guys, that is what you have to understand. Both the blocks will not be executed. Suppose if the condition is true, this will be executed, this will be skipped. If the condition is false, this will be executed, this will be skipped. So that's what you have to understand. That's how the if else statement is working. So let's go to the third type of if statement. So that is, so guys, if else if. So what is the next one that we have? If else if. Let's go back and check what exactly that I have here. So I have only one condition. I have given only one condition. What if I have more than one condition? What exactly I have to do if I have more than one condition? Here I have age is greater than 10. Suppose I want to check if the age is greater than 20 also. Then how do I give more than one condition? Right? So such kind of problems will be answered in this statement, that is if else if. Let's check how exactly I'll be doing it. So I will be writing if age is greater than 10. Age is greater than 10. I have to execute these statements, right? Suppose if age is greater than 20. So how can I do that? So if age is greater than 20. So I will be executing these statements. If it is age is greater than 10, so I have give the chocolates. If age is greater than 20, give the burgers or pizza. Okay, so like that I'll be executing. So if based on the conditions, but I will have only one else block. Suppose if this is also not true, so go for this condition. How exactly it is executing? So first it will check this condition. If this is true, it will execute this set of instructions. Suppose if this is not true, it will check the next condition that I have given. So if this is true, it will execute this set of instructions. Suppose I have more than two conditions, I can also give n number of else if. I can also have one more. I can give n number of else if statements in my if block. Right? That is what you have to understand. Suppose if both the conditions are not true, so execute this else block. This is true block. Again, this is true block, and this is false block. You will have only one false block. That's what you have to understand. Right? So guys, so the next statement that I have is nested if statements. What is that? Nested if statements. Please understand the statement. Right? So guys, nested in the sense what? So I will have the if statement. I'll have the if statement. So I will have the condition here, age is greater than 10. So age is greater than 10. So guys, inside this if statement, I will have one more condition. If gender is equal to male, gender is equal to male, then print eligible. Okay, print eligible. So guys, please observe this. I have one condition. If this condition is true, then only it will go to this condition. Again, even this condition also should be true. Then only this statement will be executed. To execute this statement, I have to satisfy these two conditions. Condition inside the condition is what? I will call it as a nested if statement. condition. Inside the condition is what I will call it as a nested if statement, is what you have to understand. Then finally I will have the else block. So else block, all of you know that if the condition is not true, this statement will be executed. This is how I will be discussing, or I will have my different if statements in Python programming. So the last concept for the day for all of you is storing a condition. What exactly the storing a condition in the sense? So imagine I have to give a condition, right? Like this. Age is greater than 10 and gender is equal to male. Okay, so it's very difficult to represent such a big condition. So what I will be doing is, so instead of writing like this in the if statement, what I will be doing is, so I will assign it to a variable. So what I'll be doing, a is equal to this condition, right? So this is how I will be storing the condition in a variable. Then I will just give if a. I can also write like this. This is what I will call it as a storing a condition. You can store the condition so in one variable. So that is one of the advantage that you have. So I have an example for all of you. So guys, hope you can see this. So with this, I have come to an end of this session. Guys, I have tried my best to give you some of the content that I have in the chapter. So please stay healthy, stay safe, take care of your family, keep watching this session again and again. Please make a note of all the points, whatever you have understood, and watch it again if you are getting any little confusion. So by saying this, thank you, bye bye.